Welcome to my channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You made me pregnant, man, he said and got angry and didn't let me go. Under the violet glow of the outpost's orbital lights, Drew hunched over his mug of Sci-Fi coffee and tried not to make eye contact with the flickering holographic warning about unsecured biological samples. He was failing at both. The samples were vibrating ominously in their containment spheres, and the hologram kept looping the same stern Vathery face, high cheekbones, silver-black hair, and the kind of long, pointed ears that looked like they could pick up galactic radio stations. He was pretty sure the warning was laughing at him. Nalira, on the other hand, wasn't laughing yet. She stood opposite him, arms crossed, her diplomatic insignia glinting like a shard of a comet. "You left the protein loaf out of its stasis field," she said, voice measured and melodic. "Do you know what happens when you leave a protein loaf out? It gets stale." Drew ventured. "Or worse, self-aware." "Worse," she said, eyes narrowing. "It starts reciting epic poetry about the futility of digestion." He blinked. "Okay, that's oddly specific." "It's also happening," she said, gesturing at the loaf. It wobbled on the counter, bioluminescent swirls forming along its surface. In a deep, resonant voice it began, "Oh, digestive acids, cruel tides of fate." Drew slapped the emergency stasis button. "Right. That's enough Hamlet from you, buddy." The loaf froze mid-soliloquy. Nalira's ears flicked once. Some Vathery version of an eye roll, Drew guessed. "You humans are reckless." "Yeah, but we're charmingly reckless," he said, sipping his coffee. "And you're still standing here talking to me. So I'm guessing you're at least slightly entertained." She hesitated, then gave the smallest twitch of a smile. "I find you statistically improbable." "That's me. Drew Carter, statistically improbable." He raised his mug in salute. "So what's a long-eared diplomat like you doing in a nowhere station like this?" Her ears flicked again, this time more gently. "Negotiating a trade pact. And observing." "Observing what?" "Everything," she said simply, glancing out at the gas giant below. The planet churned in rust and sapphire storms, lightning arcing across its clouds like dragon veins. "This is where your kind meets the unknown. It fascinates me." Drew leaned on the counter, emboldened by the flicker of interest in her voice. "If you're fascinated by the unknown, you should see my lab reports. They're basically cosmic horror in spreadsheet form." She laughed then, a soft, strange sound, like two notes played on an alien flute. "You are unlike other humans I have met." "Good unlike or bad unlike?" "Ask me again in a cycle," she said, eyes glinting. "Perhaps after a proper drink." He tried to play it cool, but his pulse jumped like a faulty graph thruster. "We do have the good stuff in storage. Earth whiskey, aged in orbit, 0G distilled. Your intoxicants intrigue me." "I'll take that as a yes." He keyed open the supply cabinet, rummaging for a pair of glasses, then thought better of it and fetched sterilized sample tubes. "Don't judge me, it's a space station." "I am not judging. I am recalibrating." Her smile widened, showing a flash of small, sharp canines, a Vathery trait he'd read about but never seen up close. They drank, and the station's hum softened into the background. Outside, the gas giant rolled beneath them, a living storm. Inside, they traded jokes about malfunctioning translators. How one once turned the Vathery phrase, "for peaceful coexistence," into "may your nostrils combust," and about Drew's disastrous attempt at cooking algae stew. At one point Nalira brushed an errant lock of hair behind her ear, and Drew noticed how the bioluminescence along its edge pulsed faintly in rhythm with her heartbeat. It was oddly intimate, like seeing her pulse written in light. "You're staring," she said, not unkindly. "Just curious. Do your ears glow more when you're, emotional?" "They do. We evolved as nocturnal navigators. Emotions are signals." "Handy." He tapped his chest. "We humans just sweat. Not nearly as poetic." Her laugh again, softer this time. "Perhaps you are not as unevolved as you think." The next hours unfolded in slow spirals. More whiskey, more stories. A tour of the outpost's observation deck where the magnetosphere shimmered like a living aurora. They drifted into the weightless greenhouse, where alien vines crept along rails, their pods glowing faintly with stored starlight. He showed her how the vines responded to humming. "They like show tunes," he claimed, and she tried humming in vapory overtones, making the pod shutter open in a chorus of shimmering pollen. She floated closer to him in the low gravity. "You are a strange human," she murmured. "And you're a very brave diplomat," he murmured back, "taking your life in your hands with a guy who can barely keep a protein loaf under control." Her hand, cooler than his, with a faint static charge, brushed his. "Life is short," she said, "even for long years." They were still laughing when the station lights dimmed to mimic night cycle, but neither moved away. The gas giant's lightning flickered through the viewport, painting them both in blue-white flashes. Words blurred. Jokes faded. Touch replaced them, slow as orbit, inevitable as gravity. Somewhere, a containment alarm chirped, ignored. The protein loaf resumed its soliloquy in silence, unheard. The station kept spinning, the stars kept burning, and two improbable beings found a new kind of signal between them, one that didn't require translation. The maintenance corridor was too narrow for shouting, but Nalira tried anyway. Her voice carried a tremor Drew had never heard before, a mix of disbelief and fury. "You made me pregnant, man," she said, ears flicking like twin lightning rods. "Do you understand what that means?" Drew blinked, clutching his datapad like it was a shield. That your translator glitched?" "It is not the translator." Her fingers trembled over the glowing interface of her wristband. "It is my body, and yours, and the impossible science you forced upon both." Whoa, forced. We were both." He dropped his voice as a pair of cleaning drones zipped past. "Very consensual." "That is not the point," she hissed. "Our species cannot interbreed. Every medical database says so. Every diplomatic treaty assumes so." "Yeah, well, databases also say Protein Loaf can't write poetry," Drew muttered, "and we both know how that turned out." She stared at him, ears flicking dangerously. "This is not funny." "Right, not funny. Totally serious. Except my brain is trying to make jokes, because otherwise I'll faint." He slid down the wall until he was crouching, datapad clattering beside him. "You're sure?" "Like sure. I have confirmed it 3 times, she said, voice softer now. "With your primitive human equipment and with mine." She held up a shimmering crystal rod. "It sings the child's pattern already." Drew stared at the rod. "Sings? Like literally?" She touched it, and a faint harmonic tone filled the corridor, eerie and sweet. His hair stood on end. "Okay," he whispered. "That's wow." "Yes," she said, eyes bright with something between terror and wonder. "Wow." They stayed there a long moment, the station's distant hum wrapping around them like a heartbeat. Then Drew scrambled up, brushing dust from his jumpsuit. Okay, we can do this. I'll talk to medical." "No medical," she said sharply. "They will make us specimens. Or worse, political pawns." "Well, yeah, but," he trailed off, looking at her luminous ears. "You're really scared." "I am Vathari. I do not scare." She paused. "I am statistically concerned." He almost laughed. "Statistically concerned. Got it. But Nalira, this is huge. I mean, bigger than the time I put algae stew in the station's fuel intake." "That incident disabled 3 propulsion thrusters," she reminded him. "Exactly. This is bigger than that." He rubbed the back of his neck. "We can't keep it secret forever." "We will have to try. At least until I reach my people. They have protocols for anomalies." He winced. "Protocols sounds ominous." "Protocols always sound ominous," she said, voice drifting toward dry humor. "But sometimes they merely involve a great deal of paperwork." Drew blew out a shaky laugh. "Okay, paperwork I can handle. Kidnapping, not so much." "Then you must stay close to me." "Right. Stay close. No problem." He leaned against the corridor wall, head spinning. "I mean, I always wanted a family, but this is interstellar speed dating." Her ears twitched. "Speed gestating, perhaps." "Did you just make a joke?" I am adapting. He smiled despite himself. Good, because if we're doing this, we're gonna need a lot of jokes. A tiny drone zipped past, projecting a hologram of an alien baby rattle. Drew swatted at it. Seriously? Even the station's making jokes now. That is your doing, Nalira said. You gave the maintenance AI access to your entertainment files. Yeah, but I didn't think it'd start trolling us. She pressed her palm to her belly, flat still, but glowing faintly beneath the fabric, a shimmer of violet light. It already changes me, she murmured. I feel different. He swallowed. Good different. Uncharted different. Okay, Uncharted we can do. He tried to sound confident, but his voice cracked. They moved through the station together, a strange duet of panic and resolve. Every corridor felt narrower, every surveillance node more watchful. Drew caught himself glancing at her ears for clues. Were they flicking with alarm, or just picking up stray transmissions? In the mess hall, he poured 2 cups of recycled coffee, spilling half on the counter. Look, I'm no expert, but I think we should plan. Like, what do you need? Special food? Anti-grav cradles? My body adapts rapidly, she said, but there may be cravings. Cravings I can handle. He tapped his datapad. We've got freeze-dried spaghetti, seaweed chips, chocolate protein paste. I may crave things you cannot pronounce. He grinned weakly. Then we'll invent new words. I'm good at that. She tilted her head, studying him. You are taking this better than expected. I'm not, he admitted. I'm just faking it until the panic wears off. That is a human trait I admire. He raised his cup. To panic wearing off. She raised hers, solemn but amused. To improbable outcomes. They drank. Somewhere overhead the station announced a routine systems check, but it sounded almost like a lullaby. Drew wondered if the whole structure knew. If the AI could feel the anomaly blooming inside her. Later, alone in his quarters, he stared at the ceiling, thinking about the harmonic tone of the crystal rod. He thought about how her ears glowed brighter when she was frightened, how she had pressed his hand to her abdomen for a fraction of a second, and how that shimmer of violet light had made his chest ache in a way nothing ever had before. He laughed once, softly, and whispered to the empty room, "You made me pregnant, man," as if saying it out loud might make it make sense. Then he lay back, staring at the gas giant storms flickering through the viewport, and realized he was already planning names, both human and Vathery, some ridiculous, some solemn. The impossible had already begun to feel real. And somewhere in the station's network, the maintenance AI added baby-proofing to its task list, humming a lullaby in binary as it reconfigured the gravity dampeners. The transport ship Argentide thrummed like a living heart as it slid out of dock, a low vibration through the decks that made Drew's teeth buzz. He clutched the edge of his seat, while Nalira buckled herself in with practiced calm, her ears flicking once in irritation at the ship's safety announcement. Welcome aboard, and please refrain from interspecies reproduction during takeoff. That's new, Drew muttered. It is because of us, Nalira said without looking at him. Your media leaks faster than antimatter through cheesecloth. He groaned. I told the maintenance AI to stop posting memes. You did not. Okay, I didn't, but I thought about it really hard. The ship shuddered as its slipstream drive engaged. Outside the viewport, the stars stretched like molten threads. Drew swallowed, trying to ignore the pressure against his stomach. That wasn't entirely the acceleration. So, Vathery homeworld, what's the plan? Officially, we are returning so my physicians may examine me, she said. Unofficially, we are avoiding the dozen factions who want to examine me more aggressively. Factions plural. Fantastic. He leaned back, closed his eyes. Remind me why we didn't just hide in a cargo crate. They scanned the cargo crates first. Fair point. He opened one eye. Any chance they'll just throw us a baby shower and call it a day? Her ears flicked. The last recorded hybrid pregnancy ended in civil unrest. Not reassuring. I am not here to reassure you. I am here to survive. Right. He glanced at her belly, still only faintly glowing beneath her uniform. Well, you're doing a great job of that. The cabin lights dimmed as the ship entered full slipstream. Hollow menus flickered in front of them, offering entertainment choices. Drew jabbed at one labeled Prenatal Zero-G Yoga and groaned when an overly cheerful hologram appeared demonstrating stretches. Is it me, or does this hologram have a weird fixation on pelvic tilt? That is culturally specific, Nalira said. It is intended for four-legged species. Ah, explains the tail support. They shared a look, and despite the tension, they both laughed. Later in their assigned cabin, a narrow space lined with soft panels that smelled faintly of ionized air, Drew unpacked a few belongings he'd brought: a datapad, a thermal mug, and a plush toy shaped like a nebula, a gag gift from the station AI. Nalira examined it with a tilt of her head. What is its function? It's a comfort object, he said. You squeeze it when you're stressed. It vibrates, she observed, squeezing it. Yeah, that's part of the comfort. She squeezed it again, listening to the faint hum. It sings in a minor key. That's the stress reduction. Her ears glowed faintly, amused. Humans are strange. And yet you're having my kid, he said, then immediately wished he hadn't. She met his eyes, expression unreadable for a beat. Statistically improbable, she said softly. They lapsed into silence, the hum of the ship filling the space. Meals on the Argent Tide turned into a comedy of errors. The ship's nutritional synthesizer, trying to accommodate Nalira's evolving cravings, produced increasingly bizarre dishes: glowing noodles, misted protein spheres that floated like bubbles, a dessert that tried to crawl off the tray. Drew kept a running tally on his datapad labeled, "Things the baby made us eat." During one meal, Nalira set down her fork and whispered, "Do you hear that?" "Hear what?" "The child. Its pattern is changing." Drew held his breath. Changing how? "It is faster, more complex." Her hand hovered over her belly. "It dreams in harmonics." "That's," he searched for words, "advanced." "It is impossible," she said, but her voice carried awe. "Cool impossible or scary impossible?" "Both." He tried to make a joke. "At least our kid won't need a music teacher." Her ears flicked in reluctant amusement. True. When the ship docked at a refueling station near the edge of a pulsar's field, Drew and Nalira used to stop to walk the zero-gravity promenade. Vendors floated between tethered stalls, hawking cosmic trinkets and snacks. Drew bought a glowing ring he claimed was a teething toy for later. Nalira rolled her eyes, but slipped it into a pocket anyway. A hooded stranger approached, offering protection charms with suspicious insistence. Nalira's hand drifted toward her concealed shock baton. Drew distracted the stranger by loudly asking if the charms came with a warranty, and they drifted away muttering. Back aboard, Drew exhaled. Was that an assassin? Probably a scout, she said calmly. We will see more of them. Great. Nothing says bonding like attempted abduction. Her ears flicked again, more resignation than alarm. You should rest. You look pale. Rest sounds good. Dreamless sleep, please. That night Drew dreamed anyway. He dreamed of a pulse of violet light stretching across space, calling him by name in a voice that sounded like both Nalira and something vaster. When he woke, the cabin felt warmer, charged. Nalira was sitting upright, eyes glowing faintly, the crystal rod in her hands. It is accelerating, she whispered. The child, it speaks in symbols now. He rubbed his eyes. Symbols. She turned the rod toward him. Tiny holograms unfolded in the air, spirals, lattices, star maps he didn't recognize. Okay, he said hoarsely. That's new. Yes. She reached out and took his hand. It is trying to show us where it belongs. He tried to joke, because he always tried to joke. Hope it's somewhere with good schools. But the symbols in the air didn't fade. They grew, connecting to one another until a shape emerged, a doorway of light, pulsing like a heartbeat. Nalira's ears flicked once, sharply. We're being summoned, she said. Drew swallowed hard. Summoned by who? She didn't answer. The ship hummed louder, as if it too had seen the door. Drew stared at the lattice of light and thought about how everything had started with a joke about protein loaf. Now the universe itself seemed to be laughing, but he couldn't tell if it was friendly laughter or something else entirely. The argent tide lurched out of slipstream, like a stone skipping off water. Alarms wailing in tones Drew swore were deliberately sarcastic. Nalira braced herself against the cabin wall, crystal rod clutched tight, ears glowing with pulses of violet light that matched the lattice still flickering in the air. "Did we just?" Drew began. "We were forced out," she said, scanning her wristband. "A localized gravity well, artificially generated." "That sounds bad. It is either a welcome mat or a trap." "Great. Can't wait to find out which." The doorway of light in front of them expanded, folding into a tunnel. Through it, Drew glimpsed something like a city built on the inside of a ringed void, structures glittering with impossible angles. "Okay," he muttered. "Definitely not Kansas." The ship's AI, voice quavering with false cheer, announced, "Entering uncharted domain. Please fill out customs declarations." Nalira ignored it, fingers dancing over controls. "It is the starborn pattern," she said softly. "I thought it was a myth." "Cool. Love myths. They're usually friendly, right?" Her ears flicked. "In our stories, the starborn can fold space-time into nursery songs. Their enemies vanish mid-verse. Comforting." The tunnel spat them out into orbit above a small world wrapped in shimmering aurora. Docking clamps engaged without permission. The ship drifted into a berth lined with luminous pylons. A voice, neither human nor Vathery, spoke through the intercom, tone calm and oddly parental. "Deliver the child." "Yeah, that's not creepy," Drew muttered. Nalira tightened her grip on the rod. "We will not comply." "I didn't think we were," Drew said, already scanning for an escape hatch. "Do we have an escape hatch?" "We have ingenuity." He groaned. "I was afraid you'd say that." They slipped out of the cabin and into the docking corridor. Gravity shifted underfoot like a liquid. Drew nearly tripped. Nalira caught his arm. "Keep your balance. The environment tests us." "Good to know," he muttered. "Any idea what happens if we fail?" "Do not fail." In the main concourse, beings of light hovered like jellyfish, long tendrils trailing data streams. One drifted close, emitting a pulse of symbols. Drew's translation band popped and fizzed. "It says, 'Welcome hybrid emissary,'" he translated. "I think. Or, 'Prepare for disassembly,'" Nalira said dryly. They pressed onward, trying to look important. Drew held the plush Nebula toy in front of him like an ID badge. "Maybe they'll think I'm your emotional support human." That is not inaccurate. At the center of the concourse a dais rose, etched with spirals matching those in the crystal rod. The beings of light circled them, humming. The air tasted of static. Nalira lifted the rod. "Why summon us?" she demanded. The beings pulsed in unison, forming a single voice. "The child carries our echo. It will awaken a path long sealed." Drew whispered. "You're telling me our kids got, what, a cosmic hearing?" "Hush," Nalira murmured. The voice continued. "Danger follows. Others wish to claim it. We offer sanctuary." "Sanctuary sounds good," Drew said quickly. "Sanctuary is my favorite word after dessert." Nalira's ears flicked once. "What is the price?" "Transition," said the voice. "We will relocate you beyond known space until the child is born." Drew rubbed his face. "Beyond known space. How's the Wi-Fi?" No answer. A sudden tremor rattled the concourse. A breach appeared in the air, dark, claw-like shapes pushing through. Nalira hissed. "They followed us." "Who followed us?" "The factions I told you about." "Great," Drew muttered. "And I didn't even pack snacks." Figures emerged from the breach, tall, armored, faces hidden, weapons glowing. Drew grabbed the nearest piece of alien tech, which turned out to be a ceremonial tuning, fork the size of a spear. "What do I do with this?" "Strike it," Nalira snapped. He struck it against the floor. A harmonic blast rolled out, shattering the attackers' weapons into glittering shards. Drew blinked. "Whoa, did I just—" "Yes," Nalira said. Again. He struck it again, this time adding a ridiculous battle cry about diaper duty. The harmonic wave sent the remaining attackers tumbling back into the breach, which sealed with a thunderclap. The beings of light pulsed brighter. Confirmed. The hybrid bond stabilizes the harmonic field. Transition must proceed now. Drew lowered the fork. Thanks. But can we, take a minute to breathe? No time, said the voice. Nalira gripped his hand. We must decide. Stay here under their guardianship, or flee back to danger. He looked at her glowing ears, at the faint shimmer under her hand on her belly. I'm not exactly a master strategist, he said, but staying alive sounds like the winning plan. She nodded once. Then we trust them. The beings of light opened another doorway, this one calmer, edges rippling like a gentle tide. Drew muttered, if this leads to a daycare, I'm cool with it. As they stepped through, a chorus of harmonics surrounded them, like a lullaby sung by galaxies. For a moment Drew felt weightless, as if every cell in his body had been remixed with starlight. On the other side stretched a quiet expanse, a station built inside a hollowed asteroid, garden domes glowing with alien flora, time running slower than outside. Nalira inhaled sharply. This is a sanctuary zone, she whispered. Looks nice, Drew said. Any chance they've got a protein loaf here? Her ears flicked in exasperation. Always you think of food. Hey, it's how I cope. A being of light floated before them, its tendrils weaving a cradle of shimmering energy. Rest, it said. We will keep you hidden until the starborn child arrives. Drew looked at the cradle, then at Nalira. Guess we're staying. She touched his hand. For now. Somewhere deep in the asteroid, the harmonics of the unborn child echoed back, stronger, like a voice testing its first words. Drew felt the vibrations in his bones and whispered, Okay, kiddo. We're in this together. Nalira closed her eyes, ears glowing like twin moons. We are. Days in the sanctuary drifted like slow comets. Drew and Nalira moved through the garden domes under a sky of engineered starlight, learning the rhythms of a place built to hide miracles. Every plant glowed with a different tone. Every corridor hummed like a song half remembered. The beings of light taught them breathing patterns that eased Nalira's accelerated pregnancy and gave Drew a sense of calm he'd never known, like someone had turned down the background static of his mind. He started to notice the change first in himself. The joke still came, but softer now, woven through with care instead of panic. He learned Vathari lullabies from Nalira, and in return taught her human tongue twisters, delighted when her ears flicked at the difficulty. He stopped calling the unborn child kiddo, and started calling it by the harmonic nickname the crystal rod produced, a lilting note neither human nor Vathari could pronounce, but both could feel. When the factions finally found them, it wasn't with weapons, but with words. Messages slipped through quantum cracks, promising amnesty, power, even a seat on a joint council if they handed the child over. Drew deleted each one, without showing Nalira. We're not bargaining chips, he muttered to the station AI. The AI replied by projecting an animated protein loaf, chasing off the messages, with a frying pan. One cycle, as the sanctuary drifted near the edge of a pulsar's field, Nalira went into labor. There was no panic, only a rising harmonic tide through the asteroid. The beings of light formed a protective sphere around them, and Drew found himself in the center of it, holding Nalira's hand, murmuring jokes about how space diapers should be a tax-deductible expense. She hissed at him but smiled anyway, ears glowing with effort. The child arrived not with a cry, but with a ripple of symbols that poured across the air like constellations rearranging. For a heartbeat, Drew thought he saw every star in the galaxy aligned in the shape of a doorway. Then it faded, leaving a small being with luminous skin and soft, half-formed ears, pulsing gently with violet light. It's beautiful, he whispered. It is ours, Nalira said, voice raw. The beings of light encircled them. The starborn has returned. The path reopens. A doorway bloomed again, larger now, leading not to a trap but to a corridor of stars so vivid it felt like stepping inside a telescope. The being's collective voice spoke. We offer you a choice. Remain hidden, or return to your people as bridge bearers. Drew looked at Nalira. Your call. She looked at their child, then at him. I am tired of hiding. Same, he said softly. Let's go home. They stepped through the doorway together. Outside waited not armies, but delegations, human and Vathari ships arrayed like cautious birds. Drew tightened his grip on Nalaira's hand, and she lifted the child high, letting its glow wash over the crowd. The murmuring stopped. In that silence, Drew realized the factions hadn't just been afraid, they'd been hoping. The child released a harmonic pulse, gentle but firm, and every ship's comm translated it as a single phrase: we belong to both. After that, negotiations were surprisingly easy. The beings of light faded, their job done, leaving behind a sanctuary asteroid donated to a new joint council. Drew found himself appointed liaison, which he translated as guy who makes jokes at tense meetings. Nalaira took on the role of cultural architect, designing new protocols for hybrid citizens. Together, they signed the first treaty recognizing interspecies families, and someone actually threw them a baby shower with real cake instead of synthesizer paste. Months later, standing on the balcony of a rebuilt station orbiting the gas giant where it all began, Drew watched Nalaira sway gently with the child in her arms. Her ears glowed in soft arcs of green and gold now, a new color he hadn't seen before. He sipped from his battered thermal mug and said, "Remember when you yelled at me in the maintenance corridor?" "I recall," she said with a smile. "You were pale as lunar dust." "I still am," he admitted, "but I'm also different." "You are less afraid." "Yeah." He looked at the child reaching for the stars with tiny glowing fingers. "Guess the universe decided to make me grow up." "Growth is not surrender," she said. "It is adaptation." He laughed softly. "That's very Vathari of you." She kissed his temple. "And you are very human. Together we are something new." They stood there a while longer, watching the storms below roll and crackle. Drew's jokes quieted, replaced by a steady hum under his breath, a lullaby he'd once learned in a sanctuary dome. He realized then that the journey had stopped being about survival and started being about building a future. When the child pulsed another harmonic note, Drew smiled and said, "Yeah, kiddo. I hear you. Let's see where you take us next." And under alien stars that no longer felt alien, with humor still flickering between them like a familiar constellation, the three of them leaned into a new orbit, no longer trapped but choosing their gravity together. The end.